Hi guys, how are you this evening? Whoa, kind of a slow day for me today, but glad to be here. Thank you for joining me for Story and Art. I'm probably, it's not going to be real long tonight. I've got one story and I thought I'd show you some photos from Yellowstone. Because the title tonight is Camping Conversations. And here we have, hi Angel, and Larry's driving, and Tamara's here, nice, and I think a couple people told me they'd be lurking. So if they are, hello, I think that might be, Lupe might be lurking, and I think Gail might be also. So welcome everybody, thanks for being here. And so tonight, my topic I decided was camping conversations. Not real motivated today. This is kind of, I'll be flat out. This is, to me, and I'm going to be honest, it's my own opinion. People may not agree with me, but today is a dark day in America's history for me and for my daughters, for my granddaughters, for women all around. It's just so sad. And I just, so I'm having a hard time getting out of that funk. And I know that there are ways to get out of there and to just turn myself around. But you know, every once in a while, you just kind of go, really? And that's what I'm doing today. So I'm glad to be here though I thought I would read a story about a place and something that I do think is really special. And if it hadn't happened, we would be a much different place in terms of our physical country and a lot of places around the world too. So the story that I have today is called The Camping Trip That Changed America. And I picked this up in Glacier National Park on the way back from our trip. And it's called The Camping Trip That Changed America. It's by Theodore Roosevelt. It's called Theodore Roosevelt, John Muir, and Our National Parks. It's by Barb Rosenstock and illustrated by Mordecai Gertstein. Now, Mordecai Gertstein, I'm just going to read you a little bit about it. I don't have it on the website because he's the author and illustrator of numerous books for children, including The Man Who Walked Between the Towers. And that won the Caldecott Medal in 2004. He wrote that and illustrated it, and it's an amazing book. I'll read to you guys sometime about a story of a man who walked between the Twin Towers when they were still here. And then Barb Rosenstock loves true stories best and enjoys sharing her passion for writing at school visits. She goes on school visits a lot. She resides outside Chicago with her husband, sons, and 2 big poodles. Her first book was called Fearless, the story of a racing legend, Lewis Smith. Received a starred review from Publishers Weekly. Yay! Drinking water today. So, yeah, cool. Photos, yes. Yeah, Angela, you feel it too. It's, oh my gosh. I just feel like the road ahead is just, the tunnel is just so difficult for, I can't even speak about it. It's just so upsetting. I mean, when Roe v. Wade was passed, there was a Southern Baptist convention going on in 1973 that endorsed it, that said it was a good idea. And I mean, at the time when it was passed, people were, I don't know, were people more reasonable? Did they not? I have no idea, but seriously, I'm afraid for I've got 3 granddaughters and I'm afraid for them. And I have several friends and they're of cross-gender and mixed marriages and all those kind of things. And they're looking at arguing. Oh, yes. Okay, story time. Stop, Gretchen. Story time. It is time to read a story. And some of the pictures in the opening that you might have seen, there were some videos and then there was single pictures in between. Those were some pictures that I took in Yellowstone. So I'm going to read the story first, and then I'm going to show you a few of the pictures that I have. And if I can get them to show, well, you'll see some. So I've got Lightroom up and ready to do. This is called, though, The Camping Trip That Changed America. Yeah. Okay. Get my things out of the way. I've been drawing today, trying. Mordecai Gerstein has this really wonderful aspect of the way he does it. It's done like in pastel and ink, and it's just a really, really beautiful kind of artwork. And let me get light over here to make sure you guys can see really good. The Camping Trip That Changed America. Teedy and Johnny didn't have much in common, but they shared a love of the outdoors. They both loved a good story, too, and that was enough to change America. Theodore Roosevelt's family had called him Teedy since he was a boy. He grew up in one of the oldest, richest families in New York City. Teedy was short and brawny with a fashionable mustache. He loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and riding horses. He attended law school before becoming a politician. Theodore Roosevelt became the youngest president of the United States and lived with his wife and children, six children, in the White House in Washington, D.C. I'm going to expand this camera just a little bit. Yeah. Now, John Muir's family had called him Johnny since he was a boy. He grew up in the Midwest, the son of a poor immigrant farmers. Johnny was tall, thin, and quiet with shaggy hair that curled into long beard. He loved the outdoors, studying, sketching, and writing about plants. He hiked the American wilderness alone and wrote about his travels. John Muir became a world-famous naturalist and protector of wild places with a special love for the Yosemite wilderness near his farmhouse in California. The White House, March 1903. Teedy settled into his favorite chair. He loved to end the day reading. Tonight, he chose a book by John Muir. Muir's adventures in California's Sierra Mountains sounded like just about perfect to the busy president. It was strange then when Muir ended his story by asking for help. Help for trees. He said the wild forests were vanishing. He called on the government to save them. The president thought about those mountain forests for a long time. Most people, even his own experts, thought America had so much wilderness it couldn't ever be used up. Was John Muir right? Could the forests disappear? How could the government help? As president, Teedy needed answers. Roosevelt wrote John Muir a letter. The president was planning a long trip to the United Western States. He asked John Muir to take him camping in California's Yosemite wilderness at the end of the trip. If America's forests needed help, the president wanted to see those trees for himself. Roosevelt's train stopped in cities and towns along its route toward Yosemite. At each stop, bands played, officials gave speeches, and people crowded the platform to catch a glimpse of the popular president the newspapers nicknamed Teddy. May 15th, 1903. The train reached the end of the line in the small town of Raymond, California, about 30 miles outside of Yosemite Wilderness. When he found men sending his baggage to the best hotel in town, Roosevelt shouted, "By George, I'm going camping. Pack me one small sack." Along with a crowd of officials, townspeople, newspapermen, and photographers, John Muir waited to meet the president. T.D. shook Johnny's hand. "I've enjoyed your stories, Muir." The president spoke a few words to the crowd. Then he joined Muir in a waiting stagecoach. They bumped along the road to Yosemite. Another stop, more speeches. Muir was growing impatient. Didn't the president want to see the wilderness? Then Roosevelt's voice boomed. "Enough pictures, folks. I'd like to see the rest of the country in peace." And the president sent his men ahead to set up camp. Leaving the shocked crowd behind, T.D. and Johnny rode off alone. "I feel like a runaway schoolboy," T.D. laughed as his horse galloped along. I love this picture. Oh, okay. Here we go. They stopped near a family of giant sequoias in the Mariposa Grove. Surrounded by the trees of this ancient forest, for once, T.D. was quiet. When he looked up, he couldn't see the treetops. The sequoias soared straight to the heavens. "These trees grew up when the Egyptians built the pyramids," said Johnny. "They are the largest living things on earth. They never stop growing unless they are cut down." Look at that. It's a great picture. That night, under the branches of a towering sequoia called the Grizzly Giant, T.D. lay on the 40 thick wool blankets his men prepared. Johnny made a bed from some branches and wrapped himself in an old cloth from his sack. He told T.D. the funny story of meeting his first bear. "I once saw a bear in a meadow. Now, bears are shy creatures, so I jumped out from behind the tree to see him run away. The bear looks up. I ran toward him shouting and waving. I finally stopped or I would have run right into him. The bear rose up, put his claws on the log between us, and glared. I'd made a big mistake about shy bears. I had to stand perfectly still for hours, or I would have been his dinner. Finally, the bear rambled off, checking back over his hind end to make sure I stayed put. That bear and I were both scared and embarrassed, but I tell you, it was the bear that had the better manners." T.D. laughed. "Was it a grizzly bear?" he asked. Johnny shook his head. "The only grizzly left in Yosemite today is this old tree. Hunters shot the last bear a few years ago." Under the trees, T.D. and Johnny slept. May 16th, 1903. The next day, T.D. and Johnny rode higher into the mountains, trading stories the way friends do. As the horses plowed through drifts of snow, they reached a peak called Glacier Point. "Glaciers carved this whole valley," said Johnny, spreading his arms. He lay down on a slab of granite and inched along on his back to show how a massive river of slow-moving ice carved the rock beneath them millions of years before. They camped high above the valley floor. Johnny made the president a bed of branches, and they settled near a fire for warmth. Johnny began his story. This whole continent is a great garden. Before the beginning of time, ancient seas covered the land, churning the rocks into soil. As the seas dried, volcanoes sculpted mountains and valleys. Glaciers carved rivers and created plains. Trees and flowers grew into forests and meadows. Wild birds and beasts filled the land. Everywhere nature sang her melody. Can you hear it? My children should see this place, said Teety. I hope it's still here for them, said Johnny. Under the trees, Teety and Johnny slept. May 17th, 1903. Overnight, a storm blew in, spreading 5 inches of fresh snow. Teety and Johnny woke under a coverlet of white flakes. They shook themselves off like 2 old grizzly bears. Bully, said Teety, stretching. What a glorious day! On horseback, Muir and Roosevelt rode down into the famous Yosemite Valley. The granite formations towered above them. They passed the sheared cliff of Half Dome and the fierce face of El Capitan, rising above the valley floor. Wow. On their last night together, John Muir talked to the president about life in the wilderness. People were destroying wild land to make money from it. Ranchers cleared forests, prospectors mined gold, and companies planned to build hotels and shops throughout the valley. There was no one to stop them. If they keep building, the wilderness won't last another 10 years, said Muir. How can I help? Asked the president. Keep it wild and protect it forever. Together, Teety and Johnny imagined a different future for America. What if everyone owned the wilderness? What if both rich and poor could spend time out in the open? What if we could save the forests for all the children to come? America's Wilderness, 1903 and beyond. Teety left Johnny in Yosemite and headed back home. His time in the forest turned the outdoor-loving president into one of nature's fiercest protectors. Roosevelt pushed Congress to pass laws saving the wilderness. He failed at first, but that didn't stop him. He created national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and national forests. With John Muir's spirit as his guide, Theodore Roosevelt saved more wild land than any president in history. Teety and Johnny never spent any time together again. Teety traveled the world but called the night of the snowstorm the one day of my life that I will always remember with pleasure. Johnny felt the same. He wrote that he fairly fell in love with the president. They exchanged personal letters for the rest of their lives. John Muir lies under the incense cedar trees he planted near his home in Martinez, California. Theodore Roosevelt lies beneath the sugar maples in the Roosevelt family plot in Oyster Bay, New York. For all time under the trees, Teety and Johnny sleep, and their shared spirit protects our wilderness forever. And the author's note says, as John Muir said, any fool can destroy trees. They cannot run away. And if they could, they would still be destroyed, chased, and hunted down as long as fun or a dollar could be got. It took more than 3,000 years to make some of the trees in the western woods. God has cared for these trees, saved them from the drought, disease, avalanches, but he cannot save them from fools. Only Uncle Sam can do that. That's what John Muir wrote of our national parks in 1901. And in 1903, Theodore Roosevelt wrote, lying out at night under those giant sequoias was lying in a temple grander than any human architect could by any possibility build. And I hope for the preservation of the groves of giant trees simply because it would be a shame to our civilization to let them disappear. We are not building this country of ours for a day. It is to last through the ages. And she says that this story is based in truth. Theodore Roosevelt wrote John Muir a letter on March 14th in 1903 asking Muir to take him camping. I do not want anyone with me but you, and I want to drop politics absolutely for 4 days and just be out in the open with you. Muir almost refused. He was tired of being a tour guide for people who didn't understand the need to protect wild lands. Ranchers, farmers, and builders felt free to develop and destroy wilderness, even those parts protected by the state, and no one stopped them. At 65 years old, the well-known Muir was traveling the world researching and speaking about preserving wilderness, and the last thing he wanted to do was take another noisy politician camping. Friends persuaded him that the outdoor-loving Roosevelt might be convinced to create strong federal laws to protect wild forests forever. There is little historical record of exactly what happened between the two men during the time they spent in camp, except for 3 men who went along as packers and cooks, and brief encounters with reporters. Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir rode or hiked on their own for much of the time. They did sleep outdoors under the trees, even in the spring snowstorm. Roosevelt returned to Washington passionate about protecting America's wilderness. He used an act that was designed to protect small historic structures to put large tracts of land under federal protection by declaring them national monuments. That's how he protected the Grand Canyon. There was no vote. He declared the first 18 national monuments, including Devil's Tower, the Petrified Forest, Mount Olympus, and the Grand Canyon. Under Theodore Roosevelt, the government founded the first 55 bird sanctuaries and game sanctuaries, added 148 million acres to the national forest, and doubled the number of national parks. Since both Roosevelt and Muir were avid readers and writers, I imagine that it is the stories Muir told that helped convince the president of the value of saving America's wild lands. The imagined dialogue is in keeping with the ideas from the letters of Muir and Roosevelt. Muir's The 8 Wilderness Discovery Books, as well as Charlie Ledig's first-person account of the trip in California newspapers at the time. The story of Yosemite and the rest of America's wild places started before the beginning of time and will continue into the future through all of us. And that's the story of the camping trip that changed America. I remember going to Crater Lake and having the camp, the ranger do an evening presentation about how the photographers would, that went along on some of the early trips to photograph and what they had to carry and how they had to go along. And this trip into Yosemite is always one of those that I think is pretty fascinating. Yeah, let's see. Oh. Yes, happy topic this last year sometime. That are over 300 years old. Oh, wow. Hi. Yeah. I mean, his book too, the Man Who Walked Between Two Towers, is pretty amazing. I remember when it came out and why it won Caldecott. I'll have to read that one night. It's just the artwork is just that special kind of, like this particular one of Yosemite, of Half Dome and El Capitan. It just having climbed Half Dome in my youth. It's fun to see these things, and I haven't been to Yosemite in so long. Last time I went, we were going to go, Bob has never been, and we were going to go camping. We had a plan to go there, and the roads had washed out, and it was just to get to our campground, it would have been a 5-hour round trip around to go. So we didn't have that long. So we instead headed to, I think we headed to Death Valley. Yeah. And that was a trip instead. But I love this one too, that you have to turn it this way to get the whole idea of the giant sequoias. Okay, so that was that. So I have a few pictures. I mean, I do have a bunch more than a few. I'm going to kind of skip around to show you some, and not them all, because you don't need to do, I have a whole bunch to start with. So I'll go right here. There you can see. Okay. So this was within a few minutes of coming into the park. This is coming out of, came in the west entrance, and those are some bison out in the field. This is actually looking toward the northwest, but it's still, I'm still coming from the Madison River and up. I haven't gotten up to, I'm on the road between Norris and Mammoth Hot Springs, which is a road that currently is still closed. They don't know if they're going to be able to open it, because this is one of the rivers that this valley flooded, but not the severe flooding. And the Madison flooded too, but not as severe as the whole northern section of the park. So what's next? Let me see if I can get these to be bigger for you. There, hang on. Oh, hang on. I know what I need to do. Let me just hang on for a sec. There we go. Okay, and this was the first bear that I saw. Yay! Literally, about 15 minutes after that other picture, there was a grizzly. There was a bear jam, and this guy was down on the road a little ways. I'm about 125 yards from him. I've got a long lens, 1:500 out at full 500 with a doubler on, and I'm doing handheld. So, and then down the road a little further, we stopped somebody had seen. There's a mother and 2 cubs. She was heading out because that other bear had been causing some disturbances with another mother and cubs. So this one was heading out. About 10% of the bears are tagged. These are grizzlies, and that other one was a grizzly too. But so not all of them are tagged. Then we come along, and there's the baby bison cruising along right next to the road. They're running along. There's one of the the bison. Some of them aren't collared, and then those collars, all the tags and collars, anything that the bears have, as they grow, they have a natural thing that will pop when if they get too big for them, and the animal grows too much, and it pops and releases automatically when it reaches a certain amount of pressure on them. Yeah, they're pretty big size, little calves. And then, so these are Bighorn sheep. And the females are just scrappy this time of year. They are just, and the young males, they are just, their horns haven't really grown. Their coats are a mess. And then there's these little guys. These were these little ground. I thought they were marmots. They're not. They're a ground, kind of a groundhog type squirrel, a ground squirrel they called it, and they were all over the place. There was one outside my cabin. They had a little burrow. Look at how these guys just completely blend in to the side of the road in the rocks. This was probably about 25 feet from me. There's 2 up there in the corner, up in the shadow. You can see their horns sticking out and over. But yeah, they're just off the side of the road. And some more bison cruising along. This is a part of the Lamar River, and this is part of the area that now is completely flooded and wiped out. So Mother Nature wins on this one. You'll see those kind of trails up above, up the hill. The bison make trails, and so it makes for when you're going hiking. If you follow a bison trail, it makes for pretty easy hiking. And in the winter, they like to follow the road because it makes for easy walking. But they're crossing the river. A couple of pronghorns, thinking they're ready to play. And bison hanging out by the side of the road and hanging out outside my cabin. This is some trees that I took a picture. I have a picture called First Watch that I took in the winter of 2022 in February when it was minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have a picture with a raven in it, but these same trees are there. They're not dead. This is the way they are. They're just cool. And that right behind them is the river. It comes back across there. This whole area, it'll be interesting to see if those trees are still there because this whole valley has been flooded. And as is this valley. This is right near Soda Springs Butte. In fact, this is Soda Springs. This is where there's a kind of a road. You might see that flat part just off to the left of the picture, and it kind of goes, and you can barely see a bridge right, I don't know, there's those white trees right in the middle, right on the kind of horizon, and underneath it you can barely see kind of a flat thing. There's a bridge. That bridge was taken out, and so that's the main bridge road that goes out to Cook City. Those are the Beartooth Mountains. And just a fella looking. This was not too far from where we were staying. Last year I watched wolves on this, or in the winter I watched wolves up on that hill. That was the view behind my cabin that I stayed in. That's facing due east. Isn't that beautiful, you guys? Yeah. Let it define you, feed you, and grow above and beyond with the words of others before you read. Thank you. So, oops, there she is. So this is an interesting spot because I took this picture with this bison down here because this, during the winter of 2020, is where we watched. This is all covered with snow in the wintertime, and you can't tell that there's a river there, except sometimes you'll see steam vents because that river has some warm steam vents that come in, some thermal pockets. And this was where I had watched a couple wolves run up and down the hill, and they had a wolf kill up here. We feel the bison just across from us. And it's funny because I have another picture with I couldn't find them in this, but they're up on the hill up above these bison were a couple of bears. And they will hang out in amongst the bison, and the bison don't care. Bears do not go after the bison. The bison are too protective of their young, and they can do some damage to a bear. And there's those trees again I talked about. All right, these are the cabins that we stayed in. No, this is at the Buffalo Ranch. It's a education center, research center in Yellowstone, run by Yellowstone Forever, the only official education group associated with the park. And I'm facing due west there. It's out in the valleys, all out, and you can kind of see the river poked around that area of green right in front of the cabins right there. That was where we'd have to be really kind of careful if we came out in the middle of the night, make sure there weren't bison there, because we couldn't get out of a cabin if you got there. And that's just the barn. More at the back. Yes. So this is in the morning. We went out one morning, and it's always just really, really beautiful. Some sunrise areas above the Beartooth like that. It's just pretty outstanding. And then that's the Lamar River running through. I'm standing up on a hill up behind my cabin, and that the road actually runs just on the upper side, this side of it, of the just below the river there, and runs straight out, and that road's all closed right now. This is an area that is stranded, has been cut off because there's no access to it. These are not very in focus, but I had to take them anyway. Mountain goats. They are probably a good 3 miles away from me, up very high with this picture. That's why. But you see those little guys just hanging out on the edge of the cliff there? They like to do that. Oh, there's a river in the morning. Yep. I like Reflection River. Yep, there's the mountain goats. I was very excited to see mountain goats. Oh, okay, so this is the bear and I'm in the van. We had gone by, had stopped, and we'd been taking some pictures of those mountain goats, got in the van and started to leave, and then saw the bear, so we turned around, we're going back, and I'm still in the van when I'm taking these pictures, so they're kind of not that great, but there's a mother and 2 yearlings, her yearling cubs. I've got some better pictures, really, but this shows them all up and about. Here she is. So now I'm on the side of the road, and she's about 125, 150 yards from me, up in the sagebrush. You can see that they blend in really well. Here to the left, you see her cubs over there, and then she's watching to see what we're doing. There's one of the cubs. The guy next to me had a motor drive on his camera that just was so loud. I like this because you can see her silver, can really tell her silver ridge there, the grizzly ridge. This is why when you're hiking in these places, you keep bear spray with you, but you also watch all around, because they do blend in with the sagebrush really well, and they like to eat it. It's a favorite food of theirs. And here she's coming along. What's going on? Then the two are watching what's coming. They're paying attention. Something's going on. And then I got a peekaboo one. This is one of my favorite shots right there. Yeah. Peekaboo bear. So now I have peekaboo bears from Alaska, grizzlies up there, and I have peekaboo bears, cubs from Yellowstone. I'm feeling pretty. And see how they hide? It's just amazing. And the two little bears were standing up on their hind end because there was a bison that was running, and it came running right by us. That one, and they were like, "What? Look, Mom! Look! Did you see that?" But you can see how the hair's all they're molting their hair, and another one up there. The sun came around out from behind a cloud, got him some good light. And look at that little face. I just love the little face. Back to the river, and then they were heading off, and I think we got done and went back in. Yeah, she's there. The two cubs are back behind. She was getting irritated with the people because she wanted to cross the road, and there were more and more photographers and people stopping, and while we were with the scientists and stuff and kept moving back, and Sue would move us back. Other people weren't necessarily moving back. Finally, the rangers showed up after we had left, and I guess got everybody to move back considerably further than the 100 yards minimum, because she really wanted to come across the road. So they had to move everybody back to about 300 yards away. And then she came right up to the edge of the road and sat down and nursed her babies. We talked to the ranger later, and he said it was pretty special to see. But yeah, I love. So then she was done, taking them back up the hill. Bison. Okay, so this is the thing where I said that they're kind of hard to spot. Okay, so you first glance, I'm looking at it. We're looking from the road. I'm over at our we're at the Buffalo Ranch. We came back to have breakfast, and we're looking across, and Sue says, "I think one of those is a bear," and I don't know if but that's a bear, not a bison. So in between these two bison, there's a grizzly bear hanging out over there. So they're really kind of hard to spot if they're not. And here he is. He's way over here on the left side, walking off by himself. So a bunch of bison and a grizzly bear. So sometimes they're kind of hard to spot amongst them. But it was fun to see. And there's the black bear that I saw. There was a black bear cub up the tree, but I couldn't get a picture of it. By more bison under the tree. Okay, sunset from our porch where we had dinner. This whole, it's hard to imagine, but that whole valley is flooded now. And they're just in front of the trees, on the other side of the trees, you can see kind of the road a little bit. That is part of the road that has been compromised. This is all flooded. And then to the right of the picture where the river goes and it starts to go and the mountains come in, that's like a box canyon in there, and that has just been torn up crazy, and there's a bridge there that goes. Now this is pretty damn, it's hard to see and it's not real clear, but wolf, yeah, wolf. Real pig slave, but he's probably 2 miles away from me, and they are darn hard to spot. On the right side of the picture, you'll see there is a raven and 2 wolves. The den is, so there's, kind of in the middle of the picture, there is a rock that a raven is sitting on. And if you go to the right of that rock, just down the rise, there's kind of this little tuck in, and that's where the den is. And there's actually, there's 2 wolves out. There's actually one laying down too on this one. There's 3, there's a cub too, or a pup, and they carry him off. The one on the left is getting about ready to grab the pup and take it back into the den, I think. So this was pretty fun to see these guys, the wolves, running around. I'm trying to get to where I have, let me see. Here. See if this will show. It might show them moving along.
Is it recording?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, 9 seconds, yes.
It really is. It is.
There's the mother. There's one of the wolves getting up.
Yeah, so. About 25 seconds.
Like I said, baby.
And there's the black one coming out.
One's coming out left. Look.
Yeah, that's the one who's walking.
Oh, cool.
That's the mom. I think they're coming out left.
It's hard. Again,
The same den as yesterday. You see where she was sitting yesterday. See the 2 trees and then the lower tree and then down.
So let's see if I can find the other one. Oh, okay. This one.
Is it light enough that you can back your ice down?
Nope.
I'm recording this. Good job.
Did you see him?
Yeah, we'll
There's
watch
there's
yeah,
the
watch
cub.
her one
She's
squat
right by
a
the
second
cub
ago.
right now, or the pup.
She's
Or there.
videotaping it.
Oh no, that's the,
Pick it.
yeah, the little one. And he's dragging it back in.
So we got in the way.
Doggone cars.
Oh,
Yep.
it's got something in its mouth. It's a cub. She's carrying the cub.
Yeah, she's carrying the
I
pup.
got it on. I'm videoing.
There. She's carrying the pup right.
So
on
the
video.
white one's next to her now. She had the, or he's either a cub or a kid because the white one followed very closely. Now they're all over there in the den. Wow.
Isn't that cool, you guys? Okay, sorry. I got lost there for a minute. Okay, let's see. Come on to here, and then. All right, then I'll take you up here. Come on. View full screen. Trying to get it to full screen. Oops. Well, it's not going to full screen on me for a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay, so then we hiked up to this place called Lost Lake, or Trout Lake, and these cool birds were all over the place. I'm not much of a bird photographer, but look at their eyes. And yeah, it's really high. Look at the tail feathers on this thing. Just crazy. It's my best bird shot. We had a good time walking up there. There's another bear across the way. Yep. This isn't an area that's all flooded now. This was across the river, so I'm shooting from about half a mile away, I think, here. And sunset from my cabin. This is down this path is, we would have come down. I can remember not being able to come out of the mess hall, which is down there by that white van down there. That's the mess hall. We couldn't come out one day because the bison were all out in front and wouldn't let us out. And that was behind this. That's the Beartooth Mountains behind me at sunset. The sun reflecting off the clouds. I'm working on a sketch on that one. And sunset. Oh, frisky pronghorns. Raven watching. He's trying again. Watching. Nah. Onlookers. And I'm almost done. And then we get to this whole area, but the next picture will give you a sense of the vastness. This is one of my favorite shots I think I did of the whole time. Every time I have been to Yellowstone in October, in April, in May, in February, I have seen herds of bison like this, and it's just amazing. Just a sec. So this is the Lamar Valley, part of the Lamar Valley. That's the Lamar River in the back. This is facing basically due south. So you go up over this set of hills and mountains, and then you would be on the other side into the caldera part. This area doesn't have as many hot springs or as thermal release areas. There are some, but you go over that hill, then you're in on top of the major caldera volcano that makes up Yellowstone. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. This just really, think about it. Each one of those little guys that look so little weighs anywhere between 1,100 and 2,000 pounds. Except for the calves. And who knows what other kind of animals are up in the woods. I haven't even searched. This was just a cool lake on the side of the road as we were coming out. I love the color around the rushes of the, and the elk were not prevalent. This is really out of focus, sorry, but the females were just getting ready to calve, so they were not anywhere where and they were really skittish, really skittish. I pulled over to the side of the road. I walked down a little bit, and as soon as they saw me even, they were like, whoop. And, you know, I was still a good 50 yards away, so. And this is, we're leaving all these people coming in. This is the north entrance. This is the Roosevelt Arch, the traditional arch that a lot of people like to come through, the one entrance. This is also the entrance and the town that, if you've seen on the news, where that house that went into the water, that's right over here. If I expand this, pretty good size. That little bit of blue right there behind that black car is part of the Yellowstone River. And that road out here, that is the road that goes from Gardner to Livingston. This house is no longer there. I'm not sure if that one is. There's a whole town over here to the left, or to the right in this picture, has been blocked off. But this road has also been compromised in a lot of places. And this is the entrance that will be closed for some time. And it's the main entrance to Yellowstone. But this Roosevelt Arch, if you ever make it to Yellowstone, and you can, go down. They've rerouted the entrance so that you don't drive through it anymore, and it's more of a ceremonial type thing. But you used to have to drive through that arch, and it has a really beautiful saying on it about preserving for the future for all to see. And the park actually goes back along the hill that is on the left-hand side of the picture, and the road that they're going to reestablish to try to get it back open is an old stagecoach road that goes up over these hills to the left. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Okay, that's my end of my little slide presentation of what you got. Sorry, it was longer than I expected it to be. And I wanted to share that it was a pretty spectacular experience, and I needed something spectacular and wonderful today to share, and that's what it is. Gonna go in. Grizzly Bear's Your Beautiful Animal Guide needs punctuation. Okay, the first line twice. Hold it. The poem. Challenge your environment. Don't let it define you. Feed your inner strength. Grow above and beyond with words of others before you. Grow above and beyond with words of others before you read. Thank you, Angel. Thank you. I love that. I love that. All right, you guys, I am going to sign off. Thank you for being here, for seeing these with me, for letting me share my photos. They're kind of half edited, half not, but you know, they're, like I said, my favorite of the whole thing. I think, yeah, the bear is pretty spectacular, but this one, I wish I would have videoed the bears seeing them, but this one picture that really just shows the whole immense vastness of Yellowstone is, oops. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that it's like that. What's hard to believe, though, is that entire valley is practically covered in water and been completely carved out. But in the wintertime, when I was there, I have a picture very similar to this in the winter, and there is 4 feet of snow covering this entire valley in February, and the river is frozen. So who knows? Mother Nature has her own plan. You know, the animals are going to be fine. They'll probably thrive, especially in the northern part, because they won't be stressed by the traffic and the people that come and try to do silly things like get too close to them and, you know, get selfies with something that can, you know, take a car out. So who knows? But it'll be interesting to see. It's going to take a while for the human part of the park to get repaired. But as I watched a video on a guy who has gone to the park every year for the past 11 years, and he's done some things, and Park Junkie too. They're going to open the southern area, but that doesn't mean that there are some amazing areas just outside the park that people oftentimes forget. They think that the beauty is all within just the park, but there's pretty amazing things outside the area, the park too. So, you know, if you had plans for there, don't give up on it. It's just might have to alter them a bit. But until next time, you guys, thanks for listening to the camping trip that changed America, and for seeing my pictures, and for being here, and for cheering me up, and for making your voices be heard, finding every person you know that didn't vote, get them to vote this year. And just let's, you know, do what we can to stay positive, but to also make sure that this doesn't go farther. And maybe, just maybe, we can pull some sanity back into this crazy nation. I don't know, it's spiraled out of control pretty damn fast, but we'll see what we can do. It's always, you know, the spiral out of control, the hurricane comes on suddenly, the tornado comes on suddenly and manages to destroy a whole lot, and it takes a lot of effort to do the repair afterwards. But usually when the repair is done, the place is stronger. Let's hope we can do that. All right, you guys, that's it for me tonight. Thanks for being here. Until next time, keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. It is all around you. Go look in the mirror, say hi, beautiful, have fun. Tamara, thanks for being here. Larry, Angel, whatever you're up to, having fun. I hope you're off having a great time. And if you're lurking, thanks for being here and listening in. Until next time.
In the heat of the night, we could get lost in all the lights and sounds. Ooh, feeling alright, we won't go home, we will just stay here downtown. There's not just stars
Yes.
on the boulevard. They're in the light in your eyes. Oh, we don't need no black cards. I just need you by my side. We could be shameless, famous, running cool, with a love that leaves us weightless. Ooh,
Camping. Good job.
yeah, gorgeous, wow. Ooh, you got me feeling starstruck too. We could be famous. We could be famous. You blow my mind, looking like a model, better than the usual. Yeah, you don't even try, not average or typical. I put you on a pedestal. There's not just stars on the boulevard. They're in the light in your eyes. Oh, we don't need no black cards. I just need you by my side. We could be shameless, famous, running cool, with a love that leaves us weightless. Ooh, drop dead gorgeous, wow. Ooh, you got me feeling starstruck too. We could be famous. We could be famous. We could be famous.
I'm painting. I'm
We could
drawing.
be famous.
Oh, yeah. Dance time.
We could be shameless, famous, running cool, with a love that leaves us weightless. Ooh, drop dead gorgeous, wow. Ooh, you got me feeling starstruck too. We could be famous.
Plan on visitors, camera.
We could be famous. We could be famous. We could be famous.
Night, everybody.